Up next, we have Jeremy Miller from Clarivate. Clarivate is one of our platinum sponsors, along with Kipu. And so I want to introduce you all to Jeremy and thank you, Clarivate, for helping sponsor this conference. A few other thank yous, our learning partner lead, our association partner AIIP, and our media sponsors, Computers and Libraries Magazine, Information Today Magazine, and the Marketing Library Services newsletter. So thanks to all those people for helping make this possible. But up next, we have Jeremy Miller, who's the lead data scientist manager for academic AI at Clarivate. Jeremy has a background in machine learning and higher education, having worked in curriculum design, faculty development, and student academic support. Since 2023, Jeremy has been working with colleagues to develop the academic AI platform to support practical AI usage in libraries. So without further ado, Jeremy, take it away, and thanks again.
All right, thank you, Brian, and thank you, Dr. Lee, for sharing your experience, research, and expertise, which I think is, of course, critical for how we move forward with newer technologies in libraries. So, as Brian said, I'm a lead data scientist at Clarivate, and I want to share with you some information and findings that we've uncovered over the last year or so regarding AI and how we can make it practical for use in libraries. So a lot of smart people are saying some version of this same statement about why AI matters, that AI is not going to replace you, but someone using AI will. So developing an understanding of how AI systems work, we believe is critical for the future. And we don't all need to be technologists. We don't all need to be data scientists. You don't need to understand the matrix multiplication and all the complex stuff that goes into building something like a large language model. However, we've observed, and I've observed very personally, that having a valid mental model of what is happening inside these systems is extremely useful for being able to interact with them, to advise people about them, to think about them, to develop practices with them, and so forth. And as Dr. Lee said, AI equity is critical to build a future where technology serves our human needs and not the other way around. So we've conducted a library survey. I'll share some of the findings here. There's a link there. You can go to the Pulse of the Library, and there's a website with several infographics and breakdowns of all the data. But we had about 1,500, a little more than 1,500 libraries respond. The top 5 regions were the United States, mainland China, India, the UK, and Australia. About 1,100 of them were academic libraries. We had about 300 public libraries and about 50 national libraries. And when asked the question, where does your library currently stand in terms of implementing AI tools and technologies, we observed really one clear trend in the response, which is that about half of the respondents are at least have a plan or are making a plan to integrate AI tools into their library practice. And I believe, and we're starting to conclude from this data that we're in a stage now where ignoring the technology or believing that it doesn't apply to you it can be a risky decision. Another finding I'd like to share is when asked in which area of library service do you see AI having the most significant impact? Again, we see one clear standout there, which is that content discovery, content accessibility, content metadata creation is really an area where librarians already start to see the value of AI technology. And then some other areas as well that we believe are significant are research excellence, which is one of our core objectives at Clarivate, cataloging assistance, student success, which we believe is another opportunity for AI with folks like Khan Academy leading the way. And then one more note on this graphic is that we do expect that these ratios will evolve. This is a kind of snapshot in time, but this is such a rapidly evolving space that we expect that if you do this in 6 months, it's going to look a little different and maybe a lot different. And as a lot of people say, a week in AI is like a year in any other field. It all changes so fast. And even the people on the inside, we're all struggling to keep up with what's going on and make sure that we're doing the right things. So Working with our customers and the library community, we've really identified 4 key families of use cases that we think make sense for practical AI usage in libraries. The first one is what we call research assistants. And so these are tools that help researchers of any variety, so from professional researchers to undergraduate students, find content, discover content, interrogate content, understand content, find links between content, and get insights out of that content to help build their own knowledge and their own practice of research. And that can be done often in ways that are very sort of classic in terms of drawing from the text and creating outlines and key ideas and follow-up questions, or more in a more visual and intuitive way for a lot of users as well. The second set of use cases is what we call the metadata assistants. And here we're really looking at a librarian or a cataloger, and which is critical work, of course, we all know for libraries, but using AI to assist in metadata generation or metadata enrichment, or finding similar documents to help support collections or discovery through that metadata. The expertise that librarians bring to that process is still critical. I think, in my opinion, will always be critical, but there's a lot of busy work and a lot of busy work that can be resolved and assistance that can be provided with AI to allow the experts to really deliver their expertise more effectively. The third category is what we call analytics assistance. And so this is different from the research assistance in that it's helping people develop insights and understanding from more structured tabular data, for things, data analysis, library usage, patterns, statistics, and so forth. And interrogating that data in a more natural way, asking it questions, having a conversation with it, being able to pull narratives and insights out of that data to further recommendations and insights for questions that are critical for people using that data. And then the fourth category is what we call the learning assistants. So this is, again, supporting student learning objectives, so reading engagement, teaching assignments, further recommendation and insights. And this one is interesting because it kind of flips the script on the way a lot of AI services work. If you go to Claude, for example, or ChatGPT, you give a prompt, you ask a question, the system responds. And really, we see with the learning assistants that inverting that paradigm, we think is probably the right way to go, where the system asks as a digital assistant or tutor and prompts the student and asks them questions to help further their understanding. So to try and meet the needs of the academic community and support all these use cases, we have built and are continuing to build a platform, what we're calling the Clarivate Academic AI Platform. And we believe this is critical for many reasons. One, to accelerate development. Two, is to ensure data governance and security, which we believe, of course, is critical, and privacy. And three, to rapidly incorporate those evolving best practices. So a week in AI is a year in any other field. We need standardized ways of incorporating new knowledge, new research, new ideas, new forms of governance, et cetera. And we believe that this internal platform is really, everybody's going to need to do this at some point that provides these kinds of services, because it's really the critical way to make these services successful universally. So I want to shift a little bit here. One of the barriers to academic use of AI is really the nature of the models themselves. And people ask me, what do you mean when you say academic AI? And the way that I like to explain that is, think of the difference between an academic book and a non-academic book. Different audience, different writing style, different use of references, different review process, and so forth. And so there really is a whole different way of existing and processing and interacting with that. Very few companies are training their own large language models. These are extremely expensive to train, so it's really only the largest companies like Microsoft or Amazon or Google that have the resources to invest to do this. As Dr. Lee said, it's extremely expensive, it's extremely resource intensive, and there are legitimate environmental concerns as well about training these things. And you can think of, broadly speaking, the training data that goes into these large language models as the web, And that's a bit of an oversimplification, but I think it gets the point across, which is there's a massive pile of data that goes in, which is generally speaking not curated, but it's of varying quality. It is unspecific in terms of its target audience or its content. Oftentimes, it's not even transparent exactly what this data are. We don't get a list from OpenAI that tells us this is the data we use. But nonetheless, what we get out of that is a model that is very good at language skill. So it's very good at understanding patterns in language, at creating coherent text outputs, and a very obvious use case is translation. So translating from one human language to another, so French to Chinese, for example, or even computer languages. So translating from a human language to a computer code language, or from one computer code language to another, for example. So the best way to take this kind of core foundation model technology and make it useful for academia is what's called retrieval augmented generation. And basically how it works is you're interacting with the user, you take the user's input, the query or the question or whatever it is, and you use a set of trusted data sources. So that can be databases, it can be scholarly databases, it could be newspaper databases, it could be anything that you trust that you want to ground your answer in. And you find the relevant content, which is a non-trivial problem, but you find the relevant content in that database or set of databases that will support a response or an answer to the user's query or question. Then you go back to your large language model, which again is very good at producing text, coherent text, but doesn't frankly know a whole lot. And you say to that large language model, use this data to answer this question. And there's a lot of technique that goes into making that work effectively, but that's the basic idea, so that you use the model only for its language skill, and you ensure as best you can that the responses and the content and the visualizations being produced come from trusted data and trusted sources. So for us, it's critical that we work with the academic community. We can't do this alone. None of us can do this alone, can take general AI technology and make it useful for librarians. So we work with our AI Advisory Council, which consists of about 20 members of the academic community. We have beta programs for all of our products where we invite customers in to use the product in an early stage and give us feedback, and we interact with them very closely to help make the products useful. We have very active and lively customer forums and customer conferences. We conduct industry surveys like the library, Pulse of the Library survey that I mentioned earlier. And we all know that there are a lot of opportunities presented to us by AI technology. Some of the things that I've talked about and other people have talked about. And there are a lot of concerns. There are a lot of problems, frankly, that we need to address before we can really make academic AI really useful for libraries, like bias and hallucination, using it as a crutch for learning to shortcut student learning outcomes, bad actors producing things like paper mills producing frankly junk science or junk papers that flood into the scientific record, or plagiarism. So we are developing this framework around how to think about this and how to act and how to guide our future actions, so that we're transparent. We only use the content that we have relationships with our content providers we are allowed to use. Based on those relationships, we're very clear about where responses and answers from our products come from. We provide citations and attribution and easy access to those cited works for verification, in the same way that scientific writers produce those citations and references as well. We maintain ethical practices that are aligned with academic use cases and safety, keeping humans, it says here humans in the loop, but really I like to say humans in the center and AI in the loop. So one of these things I'd like to highlight is the Web of Science Research Assistant. This was released last month after a one-year beta partner program. And our goal with the Research Assistant is the Web of Science Research Assistant is to help researchers and students get more out of their interactions with trusted content from the Web of Science core collection. So we offer a lot of innovative functionality that complements the collection itself and is supported by generative AI technology, but not only limited to generative AI technology. There's a number of workflows and core use cases that are supported by that technology internally. And you can request a live demo by going to this QR code, and we'd be happy to share with you what we built there. Lastly, I'd like to say that this is a very exciting time for us at Clarivate. We have several product releases and beta programs in play. These are what I like to call our back to school releases for September. Over the last 12 months or so, we've been really focused on working with our library community and our library partners to make sure that we identify the relevant use cases that will bring the most impact. And these are those use cases that I mentioned to you before, as well as the products that we have developed or continue to develop to support those use cases, as well as more to come. And that's it for me, Brian. I'll pass to you for any Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you. I don't think we have time for Q&A, but I do want to invite everyone to go to Clarivate's booth uh, throughout the conference. I believe there's people there right now hanging out. And so if you had some follow-up questions to ask Jeremy or his colleagues, they'll be at their booth in the exhibit hall. And so thank you for all attending today. Um, there's a bunch of really great sessions after, so make sure you join those, and I will see you all tomorrow morning for our next keynote. Thanks again, Jeremy, and thanks again, Dr. Lee.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great conference.